Hello, my name is Hope Jackson, and this is my discussion response for this week's question, which is, should citizens be held criminally responsible for fires that injure firefighters? We also had the questions of, in this particular case, whether or not I thought that the charge was correct, that they found that the pot growing equipment did not have anything to do with the fire, and if it had been found to have something to do with the fire, if I think that they should have been charged criminally in the deaths of the firefighters. In particular, in this case, I suppose inside the house there had been grow equipment like lamps and stuff. Those are known to cause fires. They had been being used on orchids. Orchids require a lot of light. And then they had also been being used on some marijuana plants. But the marijuana plants were found to have nothing to do with the fire. In fact, that room stayed intact. They were able to investigate later on and see that that room was still entirely intact. And they were able to narrow down the cause of the fire to an entirely different circuit board that was not related to any of the grow equipment having to do with the marijuana plants. And because of that, they determined that it had no part in the fire, and they did not criminally charge them for involuntary manslaughter because of that. And I think that that was the right decision because they were able to very clearly define that nothing that was related to the marijuana plants contributed to the death of the firefighters. And I think that potentially if it had been found that they had been using their equipment improperly, if that the lights that they were using to grow had contributed to the fire, if that circuit board had, if maybe renovations they had made so that the room was secret and hidden had been in some way not up to code and had contributed to the fire, that could very well have been a good reason for involuntary manslaughter, or even per se if it were something that could have inebriated the officer or the firefighters that had entered the home. If it had poisoned them in some way, like noxious gas, then that could very well be criminal. But I think that in this case it was correct that it was not criminal. And, well, it was in the drug sense, and they went on to mention that they were facing separate charges for that, but not the charge of involuntary manslaughter. I think that if it had contributed to that, though, then it would have been fair to have charged them with involuntary manslaughter because it would have been their fault that they were doing something improper on the premises. But the charge of growing marijuana is a separate charge, aside from manslaughter. And I think that this could go for a lot of other situations, too, like if they had been doing any other illegal thing on the premise, or just, like the first video mentioned, just home renovations that were not carried out properly and didn't have permits and stuff like that. If that had contributed to a fire that then took the lives of firefighters, that would be criminal. It's all kind of case to case, so. Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.